When the swinging doors open, the bar holds its breath. No showdown at high noon, just puddles, the smell of booze, sticky wood, and faces trying to forget. Here, a bar's a shelter and a business, not a stage for bravado. Behind the facade, noise, salty skin, made-up rules, and endless tabs. Today you walk through with me. No cuts, no polish. Want to really see it? Push the doors again. Let's go in. To picture a real saloon, start by letting go of the shine from the movies. In mining camps and train stops, it was almost always the first business to appear. It began improvised, a stretched tarp, a mud shack, a shelter built from leftover wood. With time and some money, the canvas gave way to planks. That's when the false front showed up, a tall, flat wall selling grandeur where there was none. It wasn't whim, it was calculation. The promise of permanence drew customers and kept the place alive. Few towns ever saw saloons as polished as those in Deadwood or Tombstone. Whoever pushed the door open ran into heavy air, flat beer, harsh whiskey, days of sweat, and tobacco smoke. With every swing of the doors came dust from the dirt street and a trace of manure. Music was rare. When it appeared, it was a short-lived luxury. The constant backdrop came from the buzz of talk, broken here and there by dry coughs. The eyes confirmed the rest. The wooden floor was always covered with sawdust to soak up spills and spit. It stayed damp and stained. The counter stuck to your hands, polished by use and by the sugar in the drinks. The light came from kerosene lamps, fighting the gloom and tinting everything with smoke. Even the swinging doors, remembered for theatrical entrances, had a simple job: refresh the air a little, pushing some of the smell and dust outside. In the end, the saloon was neither luxury nor romance. It served another purpose: to build, with whatever was at hand, a sense of stability in an unstable land. To the newcomer, it sounded like a message: stay, at least for tonight. Tomorrow we'll see if the town is still standing. Number 2. A fertile ground for disease. In the Old West saloon, danger almost never burst in with a bang. It slipped in through routine. Taking a bath was a full operation. Hauling buckets from the well, lighting the stove, waiting for the water to boil, dragging the tub to the middle of the room. In many homes there was just one, used in turns: father, mother, and children, in that order. By the time it reached the youngest, what was left was a lukewarm, cloudy soup. The mouth followed a similar path. With no toothbrush around, a blade was shoved between the teeth to scrape off leftovers. If it got inflamed, relief came in the barber's chair or at the blacksmith's forge, with pliers and a shot of whiskey. The towns helped little. With no sewage system, garbage fell into the street and came back with the rain and wind, turning into mud and dust. Part of that mix crossed the saloon doors, stuck to boots, coats, and wagon wheels. Inside, crowded, hot, airless rooms sheltered lice, flies, and cockroaches. The math was simple: poor hygiene, almost no sanitation, and pests everywhere. In that setting, disease picked up speed. Cholera traveled in shared cups, rinsed off in a rush. Tuberculosis thrived in smoke-filled rooms and nights of coughing that stretched till dawn. Smallpox, quick and agile, jumped from skin to skin like fire through dry grass. By the end of the day, every innocent gesture, a toast, a handshake, a hurried sip, could spark a fever. People feared the fight at the bar and the gun at someone's side, but the constant threat lived in the invisible. For the average customer, the biggest risk wasn't a stray bullet. It was what passed from hand to hand, from mouth to mouth, fed by carelessness, crowding, and dust. It was routine, not the duel, that dug the graves. Number 3. In the Old West, the saloon's most treacherous filth didn't live on the floor, but in the bottle. Real bourbon, expensive and aged, almost never showed up. What crossed the bar had nicknames that mixed humor and warning: coffin varnish, tarantula juice, rat poison. And it wasn't an exaggeration. To keep the booze flowing without breaking the bank, plenty of folks made their own whiskey. It started with grain alcohol bought by the bucket, got its color from burnt sugar, and its kick from chewing tobacco, which dumped nicotine into the glass. After that came whatever was handy: turpentine, creosote, the same wood preservative, and other mixes no one today would dare put to their lips. The result was a harsh shot, strong enough to drop a cowboy in minutes and leave behind nausea, fever, and a brutal hangover. It wasn't a one-off trick. In frontier towns and mining camps, the lack of oversight created fertile ground for this trade. Labels meant little. Every sip was a gamble. Not even beer escaped. Without refrigeration, it came warm and flat, and anyone asking for something stronger often ended up with a barrel laced with drugs. In that world of hurry, bravado, and faith in liquid courage, raising a glass also meant bargaining with risk. Many toasted thinking they were defying fate, without realizing the threat lived right there, in the amber liquid. Calling the booze rat poison then didn't sound like an insult. It was almost a diagnosis of the time, when the saloon lit up the night and at the same time put the liver to the test. Number 4. Vice and violence never shined the way the movies promise. The saloon earned a reputation as a den, and there were moments that justified the label, but daily life ran at a different pace. In real life, when tempers rose, the usual scene was a brief clash between 2 or 3 men, almost always over cards, unpaid debt, or a sharp insult. Over time, many towns required weapons to stay at the door. The rule didn't end the risk. It just changed the outcome. Fists spoke louder than triggers. Inside, gambling set the pace. Packed tables, worn-out decks, and chips sliding back and forth kept the place alive. Some dealers treated their reputation like capital. It was what sustained trust and brought customers back. There were also masters of deceit, skilled at stripping rookies clean with marked cards and subtle moves. Between hands, music, laughter, and talk kept the crowd at the table, waiting for luck to turn. The role of women needs to be made clear. Saloon girls were professionals of sociability. They sang, danced, toasted, listened to stories, and kept the wheel turning. For many, it was a rare path to autonomy in a frontier that was unforgiving to hesitation. Prostitution followed a separate track, with its own codes, little protection, and constant risk. A parallel business, almost always away from the main stage. Behind the swinging doors, there was no epic, only routine. There was calculation, negotiation, and choices made by those seeking distraction in a land where death lurked nearby. That was the West as it was lived. Little glamour and plenty of pragmatism. The saloon, far from myth, worked like a business that learned every night, covered its losses, paid the band, and opened again the next day. It carried on that way, more dependent on deals and reputations than on gunshots and Western-style showdowns. Number 5. Not everyone crossed those swinging doors. The Wild West fantasy, with fights and dust, hides the fact that the saloon was a social machine driven by invisible rules. They defined who got in and how to behave. At the bar, cowboys, miners, sheriffs, and outlaws bumped shoulders. Roles changed hands quickly. A man could be the authority today and the troublemaker tomorrow. Still, the boundaries stayed clear. Women considered respectable stayed outside. Native peoples and Chinese immigrants were often turned away. Black men present in the West ran into the wall of white property and for that reason built their own establishments. And there was one unexpected ban: soldiers. The uniform caused irritation, and owners preferred to avoid conflict with public authority. Those who made it past the first filter faced another: conduct. Discretion was the law. No one asked where someone came from or why they'd shown up. Staring was an invitation to disaster. There was also the ritual of the round. Whoever offered a drink expected to see it accepted. Refusing sounded like an insult and could spark a fight. Daily life had little of the shine sold by Hollywood. The smell of sweat and smoke took the place of perfume. Many bars served booze of shady origin, sometimes mixed with poison. Hygiene was poor, disease spread unchecked. To keep the night standing, the selected clientele enforced tough rules, trying to hold off the chaos outside the door. Looking at the real saloon helps us read the West without legend. It wasn't a stage for flat heroes, but a stop where common people with crisscrossing stories looked for rest, news, quick money, or forgetfulness. What holds up that image isn't the shine, but the mix of exclusions and rituals that organized social life. In it, You see a society trying to impose order through custom, while the frontier charged a heavy price from everyone. And for you, what stands out in this scene? The doctored whiskey, the lurking disease, or the rigid etiquette that mattered more than a revolver? Share in the comments. Thanks for following along.